Hi everyone, and welcome to our Flexo webinar. Today the topic will be migration from SAP PIPO towards the Integration Suite. Now before we start, who am I? I'm Maxime Olravens. I'm an integration architect at Flexo. I've been working at Flexo for 5 years.
Yes, thank you Maxime, and welcome everybody. I'm Stefan Huygens, also an integration architect at Flexo Digital. Active in the integration field for over a decade, and I'm joining you here today from a background of multiple migration projects.
Thank you, Steph. Now on the agenda, we'll have a short introduction of Flexo, the integration team, about the current situation, SAP PO, and then also the SAP Integration Suite.
Yes, and I will give you more information on our Flexo Migration Factory, and going through all the steps from the start with an assessment up to the end with the go live and aftercare. During the presentation, I will also show you some customer cases that you get some insights in the practical projects, and then we'll conclude with some next steps to get you started on your own migration journey.
All right. For the introduction, the Flexo integration team, we consist of 20 plus integration consultants. We're all based in Belgium, and we have a lot of profiles at our disposal. We have integration architects, lead consultants, and developers. Now, what is the main focus of the integration team? Well, we focus on all of the capabilities from the SAP Integration Suite. We do advisory and implementation. We do a lot of migration projects, SAP and non-SAP, towards the Integration Suite. And we also guide you with enterprise architecture.
Yes, I also like to give you an introduction about our customers. You have a small overview here of some of our clients. For all of these, we did integration projects in the past or currently. And a subset of these was, of course, also migration projects, like we have Ajinomoto, ETEX, Brutex, KU Leuven, Sibelco, and many more. I want to highlight this because during the customer cases that we'll show you, these were joint sessions where we presented with the client on events like in the SAP building. And it highlights how well our migration projects actually went.
Now, let's have a look at the current situation. We live in a world of more. Integration is everywhere, so it's good to have a look on the whole world. More applications. Over thousands of applications get created every month. More clouds. 90% of organizations are multi-cloud environments, so it's more distributed. More data. In comparison to last year, data transfers are up 25%. And also more quickly. People don't want to wait seconds anymore. They want it real time. If I would have even more place on this slide, I would even put more AI agents. But ironically, I don't have more space on the slides. Now this, of course, raises questions. Questions from the business. How can we operate at the speed of our business? How can our ERP system become a team player? And from the technology stack as well. How can we create an architecture that supports innovation without actually disrupting our core systems? How can we be more agile in responding to all of these market changes? Now, before we have a deep dive in the response, let's have a look at the current situation now with SAP PO. What is SAP PO? Well, SAP PO is an on-premise system. It is end of life 2027 with an extended maintenance of 2030. It is a self-managed system and maintenance mode. So maintenance mode means that we cannot innovate anymore. All of these come with certain risks, on-premise and escalating costs, our own infrastructure, our own development on-premise, which has an extra cost for migrating, End of life, cybersecurity threats, we cannot upgrade anymore. If there is a threat, it's up to you. Self-managed upgrades, infrastructure, scalability, and then maintenance mode means a break on innovation. You will not be able to play into those market changes anymore.
Yes, this brings us to our first customer case. It was a project at Ajinomoto. And like Maxime just showed you, we have a couple of reasons to move from SAP PO towards the Integration Suite. But at Ajinomoto, they took a different approach. They looked upon, from a strategic point of view, their strategy is a cloud-first strategy. They had a lot of on-premise systems, and they wanted to move this to the cloud. One of their projects was an S/4HANA private cloud project. And to better prepare this, they already moved their SAP PO system towards Integration Suite, and this enabled them to then use all the features of Integration Suite for their S/4HANA project. So, more reasons to move from SAP PO than just the end of maintenance, of course.
Indeed. Now let's have a look at the SAP Integration Suite. Our team lead, our competence lead, once said that integration is an essential and critical component for organizations. Modern integration supports business processes, clean core, and digital strategy. Integration is not just a technical requirement, but a strategic enabler for digital transformation and innovation. So I really like the last phrase. It's not a technical requirement, but a strategic enabler. Now, why would we actually choose the SAP Integration Suite?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, like we saw with the previous customer case, we saw extra reasons to move from SAP PO, but now, why do you want to choose SAP Integration Suite? At Sibelco, they had the same question. They were running not a SAP PO system, but a Boomi system, but they didn't fit their needs anymore. So they contacted us because they wanted to have a separate small project to do a comparison between middlewares, where we were responsible for details on the Integration Suite. They combined our feedback with other investigations and things like Gartner research, but then came to the conclusion that SAP Integration Suite was the best fit for their current and future needs. Another thing that was interesting at the Sibelco project was before we started the actual migration, we had more than 10 workshops to really define all the guidelines and templates that they want to have implemented for new developments, starting of course with our migration project, but also for future developments. So that's also something that can be important for a migration project.
Now, if you want to have a recap of the study and why exactly the SAP Integration Suite, well, we summed it up in 4 key points. Future readiness, you're on a modern and a strategic integration platform. Implementation cost and the impact on innovation, it's way faster to develop flows on the Integration Suite. Infrastructure and support, it's not on-premise anymore, so we don't have any infrastructure, any upgrades or any maintenance. And security and scalability, so it automatically scales and is always highly available. And if this is not enough, at the bottom you still see SAP NetWeaver end of maintenance 2027 with an extended contract till 2030. Now, the SAP Integration Suite, on what does it run? Well, it runs on the Business Technology Platform, or BTP. I think everyone has heard of BTP before. Well, BTP has multiple services: app development, automation, integration, data and analytics, AI. It's a really innovative platform. Now, if we have a deep dive on the integration service, you will see here the SAP Integration Suite. It has loads of accelerators, capabilities, deployment models. If we have a deeper dive into those capabilities, we have cloud integration. This is where we will develop our iFlows, do all of our orchestration. API management, security, throttling, policies, event mesh, event-driven architecture, open connectors, connecting to third parties, B2B, trading partner management, everything EDI, ODET, GS1. Edge integration cell, if you're not that confident of the cloud, you still have a hybrid deployment option to also have an on-premise variant. Prepackaged content, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Always go and look on the discovery page. Maybe it's already been done before, which saves a lot of development costs. And migration tools. Tools from SAP which allows us to import certain SAP PO objects or whole integrations into our integration suite. Now if you noticed, I put two of those capabilities in bold. These will be the main drivers during your migration project. But more on that from Steph.
Yes, thank you, Maxim. So now that we've seen what the current situation is and how the future can look like, the question now is, how do we get there? And for us at Flexo, we use the Flexo Migration Factory. The Flexo Migration Factory is a process that we've defined within our company. It actually doesn't matter from which system we are starting. This session still focuses on SAP PO, but it can be any middleware, like we already discussed the Boomi system from Sibelco. And what does it entail? Here we have 5 phases. First of all, we come on site and we have an integration workshop where we discuss what's your current landscape, which interfaces are in scope. Then we do a deep dive in your system and we go through them, see if there is anything special, any remarks, and then we come to our assessment. We come up with estimates and guidelines. After this, we come up with a project plan and a migration approach, and only after this step, we actually start with the actual technical migration, let's say. Now, for all these steps, we have guidelines, templates, documentation, technical objects, and suggestions for systems to use aside from Integration Suite. And the goal is, of course, to get to Integration Suite as smooth as possible. Yes.
Now, what does a Flexo assessment entail? Well, first we have a preparation phase. So we have an intake meeting. We come to you, we look at the as-is situation, we review the existing architecture, and we also discuss the to-be situation, maybe hesitations, doubts. Once we finish the preparation phase, then we go and dive into the system. We do a system-based analysis, we run the SAP assessment tool, and after we've done our assessment, we will give you our own interpretation of the assessment. We will give you an evaluation of the workload, an estimation of the workload, and then also our migration approach. Now, what are some of the documents that you could expect from this SAP migration assessment? We go into the SAP Integration Suite, we lay a connection towards the SAP PO system, and then we will get a dashboard. Here you can see, for example, all of the integration flows that are ready to migrate in green, flows that have some small modifications in orange, and then some flows that need further evaluation in red. We also get t-shirt sizing on the complexity, going from simple to extra large, small to extra large. And then a lot of data. So this is a line chart on all of the sender adapters, receiver adapters.
Yes, thank you, Maxim. So we've now seen some details on the assessment part, but a migration project is much larger. We've divided it up in 5 phases, starting with the evaluation phase, a prepare phase, and then we work with migration cycles, where the first step is the actual technical migration, then testing and go live. Now, some more details for each phase. The evaluation phase we already covered. You do the assessment, you do any necessary workshops. If you want to go very detailed, that's also possible. But the goal is to have proper governance and guidelines ready before starting the project. Then, as preparation for the technical migration, you will have a list of interfaces that are in scope and that are also estimated based on availabilities. Then a prioritization can be put on those flows and a planning can be made. One thing that is very important within the prepare phase, and I can't emphasize this enough, is stakeholder engagement. Because depending on many interfaces there are, it could be hundreds, but it could also be thousands, there will be many stakeholders that need to be contacted. And it can be third-party systems, but also internally the business that needs to support testing or be ready available for questions, people that are responsible for technical systems, things like that. After the prepare phase, you start with your actual migration. And this is the execution phase, where your developers will migrate all the options of all the objects. One important thing here is to keep a first-time right approach in mind, meaning you have your interfaces and you want to migrate them as efficiently and as fast as possible. Meaning if you would then also try to implement changes during the migration projects, this will cause extra delays and will make the testing really more difficult than necessary. Also important during the migration phase is that you try to mitigate risks as much as possible. After this execution phase, everything that's been developed can then be tested and validated by the business. After this, you have the go-live phase. Here, one of our best practices is to work with the phased go-live. That's also one of the reasons that we work with cycles. One of the benefits of working with phased go-live is that your internal team or your operations team can get to know the monitoring and logging early on in the process. This also enables them to give them feedback for if they still want to do some minor changes. Also the hypercare, which the developers from the execution phase will support, because it's a phased go-live, the effort for the hypercare will also be spread out over time, and this will help the process of the project as well. Now, seeing all these phases and mentioning the guidelines and governance that we need up front, we of course already have these from previous projects, so we don't need to start from scratch. This can come in different formats. It can be Word documents that you can share with your team or with external parties. Also technical objects within cloud integration, for example. And one of our best practices is also to work with Cloud ALM for monitoring, for centralized monitoring and alerting, and of course using cloud transport management. Yes.
Now, if we have a look at the migration execution phase, so based on the assessment, we have multiple approaches to do our execution. We have approach 1, an automated migration. So here we will use the SAP migration tool to import those ready-to-migrate scenarios into the SAP Integration Suite. Now please note that configuration is still needed. Security artifacts, endpoints, applying our migration guidelines. This is all not done by the tool. So it's not just click and forget, you still have to do some configuration. We have the hybrid migration approach, and you see that there are two options. We can do a pre-adjustment in SAP PO. So this means that there is something that we cannot migrate. So we will just remove that in SAP PO, which will allow us to then migrate the greater part of the integration and to then do some adjustments. Or option 2 is we start from templates and reuse certain SAP PO objects. For example, a message mapping, a script. For our third approach, we have a manual migration. So here we will refactor all of the integration flows. We will prepare templates so that we don't have to start from scratch. And we will use script conversion tools and libraries. Now, if we have a deeper dive into those tools, we split them up in two sections. Automation and AI. Automation is of course the SAP migration tool, which automates those migration steps of importing integration scenarios, or for a hybrid approach, the message mapping import tool, where we will then import message mappings. If you have a look at AI, we also at Flexo have invested a lot in AI. We have a Flexo AI documentation tool, which allows us to just document integration flows with the click of a button. AI script conversion, converting Java mappings to XSLTs or Groovy scripts. All of our consultants are also AI empowered, which means they're aware of the latest and newest trends within AI. And SAP itself is also heavily investing in AI. So we have SAP AI-driven flow creation and SAP AI-powered anomaly detection. But please note that these services are only available with the premium licensing model of the Integration Suite. If you have further interest in AI, then you can go to this link and have a look at all that Flexo has to offer involving AI.
Yes, thank you. So aside from Flexo working on a migration project, you also of course have your own team that you might want to get familiar with Integration Suite. To support this, we offer multiple trainings. This can be in the form of a classroom training where we can give a full training of everything that is Integration Suite, but it can also be detailed, just focusing on testing or just something for developers. Another option within training is learning on the job. This is where your internal developers will join us during the execution phase. They will take on migrating objects, and this way they can get to learn how Integration Suite looks like, how to work with it, but then I also already know the objects that they created and all the details that were part of that. As a third option, we also do coaching, and this can be out of the context of a migration project. It's where, again, with your internal team of your developers, we sit together, they get a new requirement, we go over that, seeing that everything is clear or that more information is necessary. Then they can start with the build. If they have then questions with the build, they can still come to us, and afterwards we can do a review. It can be a code review of the scripts, a review of the flow itself, where we also have checklists for, things like that. This then brings us to our next customer case, which was at ATEX. So ATEX was also a migration project, PIPO towards Integration Suite, but they were really interested in learning on the job. So their team joined us during the project, which was around 100 interfaces that we co-delivered in 4 months. But then after the project, those developers were properly capable to take on any new requirements. So now they're still taking on all their developments with their internal team. And then this brings us to our last customer case.
The KU Leuven. So here we did a transitioning from SAP PO towards the Integration Suite. So what we did was we migrated from SAP PO, but then afterwards we also really took the time to enhance all of our integrations, to really spot key features, implementing API management in front of flows for students, enhancements in performance, challenging third parties or stakeholders to improve their systems to have cleaner and more modern integrations. If you have interest in this case, we will still present this case in December. Now, for the next steps, let's have a quick recap. So, if you need to remember something from this presentation, please remember SAP PO is end of life in 2027. We think that the Integration Suite is the future. And please start planning your migration assessment. Even if you're not going to migrate immediately, at least you will have a vision on the work that is needed. You can go to our websites or...
Yes. Currently we have an offer that you can take on. You can go to the website or you can scan the QR code here on the screen. And this allows you to book our flexible migration assessment immediately. What you would get with this offer is the intake meeting that we discussed. We'll go through your system ourselves, but also using the SAP Migration Assessment tool. Based on these inputs and our best practices, we'll then come to you with a feedback meeting where we discuss the approach for the migration, estimations for the workloads, workarounds for technical difficulties, etc. Or if you still think I want to have more than just this assessment, that's also, of course, still an option. All right.
Now, please, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. But also, please don't leave. Stick around. We still have an announcement to make at the end of the webinar.
So first question, how long on average does the PIPO migration project take into SAP Integration Suite? Of course, it's usually from case by case, but in general, yeah. So it's a difficult question to answer. I already gave the ATEX case as an example with 100 interfaces in 4 months. But yeah, it really needs to be looked upon case by case. How many interfaces are there? Are they easy to migrate or are they complex? Do you want to follow our advice from taking an as-is migration, or do you also want to really implement more guidelines? So
also involvement from the stakeholders and the third parties, test data being available. But I do think that if you run the assessment, at least you will have a vision on the workload technically. Yeah. So, okay, there are factors that we cannot control, but if you do the assessment, we know the number of integrations, we know the technical work, we know the workarounds. So yeah, to really give you an average number, yeah, case by case, but the migration can at least give you a number on the technical requirements.
Yes.
I hope that suits your question.
Okay, let's see if we have another question. How does the flexible assessment add value beyond what is already covered within the SAP assessment? So the SAP assessment that Maxime just mentioned, the migration assessment. You can run it yourself if you connect your integration suite to your payroll system. Still depending a bit on the license, but if you don't have the right license, we can always run that on our system as well. But then this just gives an estimate. How complex are the flows, etc. What we do with the flexible assessment, we first sit together with you and to really discuss which is in scope, how do you want the future to look like. We also do a separate technical deep dive in your system to see, you have to check extra parameters where the SAP assessment doesn't take into account. And the results of our investigation and the assessment of SAP, we combine this then with our best practices, and we can also come up with an approach. So the flexible assessment is definitely more than just the SAP assessment. So I hope that answers your question.
How do you help, the following question is, how do you help customers adapt their governance model for cloud integration? For example, regarding transport management, versioning, or operations? I think you've got the expert right here.
Yeah, that's really defined in those initial workshops. Either you as a client already has some governance in place. Sometimes there's nothing there, but if you already have some governance and guidelines ready, then we discuss them and try to match them with Integration Suite. Then we sit together and really detail them in, for example, the Word document, so that it's clear for us how do we migrate everything, what's the naming convention, etc., but also then for future projects.
The following question is, are there missing features in SAP Integration Suite compared to SAP PIPO? We have some interfaces with older technologies.
Yeah, this is definitely the case.
Yeah.
There is not a 100% feature parity. One reason is SAP PO is an on-premise system, Integration Suite is a cloud system. The benefit of Integration Suite is that you definitely get also more features that are in SAP PO. Now, the things you are missing, if you're really using them in your interfaces, you need to look upon them case by case. A good example there is always a file share, which is running on-premise. Most of the time it works with NFS. Cloud integration doesn't have this adapter, but then there are workarounds. You can mount an SFTP on top and then use the SFTP adapter or the SMB adapter. So needs to be looked upon case by case, but workarounds should be there. And if they're not there, there's still the roadmap for Integration Suite from SAP where you can have a look at. They're really working very hard on Integration Suite. There are new features coming out all the time. So you can have a look there to see if the specific thing you're missing is on the roadmap.
Also for the main missing features, the very known missing features, we've all incorporated those in our guidelines, I believe. So we have best practices, the NFS case, all of the options, exposing through SFTP or function calls. So for the main missing features, we have guidelines on those and how we as Flexo approach those changes. Then, thank you all for all of your questions. If you sticked around for the Q&A, we also would like to invite you to our Flexo Tech Day. So on the 13th of November, we have three tracks, data and analytics, extensibility, and automation and integration. I will also be there, so if you still have some burning questions for SAP PO to Integration Suite migrations, always feel free to reach out. And then I think we will just leave this slide so that you can scan the QR codes and hope to speak to you soon. Yes. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Yes,
and I hope you enjoyed the session.